All right, we're going to be down here because I don't like being up on a stage, so as long as you can see me, we're good. Everybody see me? Perfect, awesome. I moved too much, and so I'm so sorry for the videographer. I'm going to move a little bit, so sorry about that. So my name is Marlo Gaddis. I'm the Chief Technology Officer in Wake County Public Schools in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just to give you a little context, Wake County is the largest in the state of North Carolina, 15th largest in the U.S. We have 160,000 students. We just moved up to 199 schools. And what makes us really interesting is that we actually have 11 different instructional calendars, which means there are 2 days every school, and I love the faces, y'all. There are 2 days every school year that we don't have kids if you take out the weekends and the holidays. So we constantly have kids in our schools. We have multi-track year-round, we have year-round, we have early college, we have modified calendars, and we have the good old traditional calendars too. So it makes it really fun. And I have the great pleasure of working with this fantastic lady who's going to introduce herself.
Oh, thank you. My name is Jan Mills, and I work for ClassLink. I live here in Texas, so I apologize for the heat. Some years we have really bad stretches, and you got the lucky stretch. So, but when you sponsor this, you get a little bit of time in front of you guys, and I could not think of anybody better than to bring one of our most treasured customers, Wake County, and Marlo. Marlo and I do a lot of events in the technology world, and you are getting the best of the best, I can just tell you that. And so we know that you are not probably high-tech. We're not going to throw a lot of lingo at you, but we certainly want at your level for you to hear a little bit about questions you need to be asking and the things you just need to be aware of. Have any of you ever had any kind of cyber event in your district happen where you've been concerned? And all of you hands who are not up, you're so lucky. Because,
it's coming.
It's coming. It's probably happened or happening, and you don't maybe even know it. And so Marlo is just an expert, and she speaks all over the United States about this topic. And so you are just going to be wowed by what she has to share with you. And so thank you for your attention and for your time.
Thanks, Jan.
No pressure. I'm going to sit down and get up at the end.
There you go. No pressure at all, thanks to Jan. I appreciate that. This is not like the sexy topic. So when Kim was talking about make sure you come back, I was like, please, please, please come back. But what I want you to know, some of you are thinking in your head, this isn't my job to know this. I have people who don't do that. What I hope by the end of today that you will know is that this is everybody's job. Everybody needs to understand cyber wellness and how to take care of your district, and I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about how to take care of your cyber wellness. So when we think about wellness and that word, my first thought was some of these pictures, right? So what I'd like you to do is at your table, and I'm only going to give you about a minute, so anybody who is a conversation hog, try to give up your time appropriately. But think about which one of these are you right now? I'm asking right now because it may not be good if I'd asked for last week, but for right now, where are you and how do you take care of you right now? All right? So take about a minute and talk at your table. And one, I guess I should also tell you that I used to be a kindergarten and first grade teacher, so I'm not a typical technology person, if that helps for anybody's attention span. I did kindergarten. So what I heard as I walked around, and I'm not going to have you share it because you shared at your table, but what I heard was a lot of C's. A lot of C's. A lot of people talking about being tired or having been tired, or the fact that it could be you on any day that C is your realm. And we have certain things that we do, right, to make sure that we stay or we become well. So when we think about all the things that we do, if you're a diabetic, you may be checking sugar. Right, I have a staff member who does that every time we go out to eat. I know that's how she's keeping herself. You may be exercising. Some of you were absolutely awesome. I did not do that. I went to the pool today, but I did do a walk first thing this morning, so I'm going to count that. Sleeping, monitoring your blood pressure, Vaccines, which we all know have been, the big thing for the last couple of years. Cleaning things, going to the doctor, washing our hands. These are all the things we do to become or stay well. And when we do that, we know that good personal wellness, the reason we do that is that it reduces the likelihood of us getting sick, and it reduces the impact of how sick we get, right? Can everybody agree to that? We do that to keep well. For those of you who exercise because you love it and you're awesome, I'm not going to talk to you the rest of the trip because you are not my people. I'm going with Marilyn on the cupcake. I'm on the cupcake band. But when we think about good personal wellness, we're talking about the likelihood and impact of something happening. So it's only natural that when we talk about cyber wellness, it's very similar. And so don't worry about this yet. I'm coming back to this one in just a minute. But there are lots of things we do to keep ourselves cyber well. In a district, in your home, in your personal finances, all those things are things we need to be doing. But I want to talk to you a little bit about why it's important in school districts. All right? If you didn't know, we had 3 pandemics, as far as I'm concerned, going on over the last 2 years. One is the simple one. We had COVID. 2, we had social justice, which is something that we still are fighting, and we'll be fighting for a while, I believe. And 3 is we had a huge increase in cyber attacks nationwide. Because where in the past, K-12 wasn't considered a business that people wanted to attack, all of a sudden with the pandemic, they realized they could freeze, stop, keep kids from learning in that process. And we became a huge target. So in our state department and our Department of Public Instruction has been trying to help us with some of the work that we're doing. They've been buying all kinds of subscriptions, which I wish I'd stop, because you can get too many subscriptions to help you with cybersecurity. You can over-resource yourself on that, I'm just saying. But when we look at these, we have lots of incidents happening every day. How many of you are superintendents or recovering superintendents? All right, so here's the conversation my superintendent and I had. I had shared every time another district had a cyber event, I would send the link of the news article to our whole cabinet. And I would send it, and I would send another one, and I would send another one. And one of the days, after reading multiple articles, my superintendent came to me and she said, let's talk about what we're doing to prevent this for us. Because one of the things that she realized, and I have a very smart, very wonderful superintendent, but one of the things she realized in reading all the articles is there are 2 people that take the fall for a cyber event, friends. It is you as a superintendent, and it is me as a CTO. That's how that plays out. So it was very important, and so if you're a superintendent in this audience, you need to know what's going on in your district. And if you're not, you're one of the people that we need to help do some of this work. But when you look at this in 2020, we'll see that only in January through July, right, early pandemic, it was only 28% of all cyber incidents in the country. That's business, that's everybody. And then we went up to 57 in the same year in the next 6 months. And now they're predicting 86%, just so you know, will be the upcoming number for K-12 incidents. And by the way, you're getting a copy of this, and I have links all embedded in this, so if you're interested, all these links are, all the articles, everything are in there. So I love this one, because as I told you, I was a former elementary school teacher. Russian hackers, 2 Ohio districts, came from an email to an elementary teacher who clicked the link. 2 whole districts down, right, when we think about those. And again, the idea that cyber incidents are on the rise for 86%. We fish our own people. If you're not sure what phishing is, we fish our own people. They don't love me for it. Our teachers hate it. Our state gave it to us, so that's why we do it. But one of the things I will tell you is when we talk about cyber wellness, when we started phishing our own people, we were at a 36.6, which is actually fairly low percentage of proneness to phishing. we are currently sitting at 6%. Right? Our people don't question now some of the work that we talk about. Here's a bunch of articles, right? All the different folks that have lost money. I have friends in Baltimore County. They are still rebuilding their systems. They had to buy all new systems. Millions of dollars happened from when they got hit with ransomware. So why do you care, right? First of all, there's a loss of student and staff data. If somebody hacks it, they can shut everything down. They can take every piece of your information that you've got. There's also identity theft. Anybody had their identity stolen in the last couple of years? I did. And I will tell you, if you've ever had it done and had to go through all the pain to get your life back on track, it is not fun. But here's the problem. Right now, the most valuable data that we have is our kids' data. Why is that? Because somebody can apply for credit cards. They can do all kinds of different things with our student data. And our kids will never know they had their identity taken until they turn 18. So how many of you are parents in here? All right. Of the people who are parents in here, how many of you check your child's credit? Yeah, see, look. So every day, you get those 1 credit a year checks free. My husband he added our son's credit to that every year. Check your child's credit at the same time because you don't know when something has been breached. So it is very, very expensive in that instance. But also, it can provide access to our systems, our credentials. They can go in and do whatever they want. On side note, here's my funny story for today. We had 2 students hack our system. I'm not proud of it, but I will tell you that they went in and changed a table on a chart, and they made our Buckhorn Creek Elementary Butthorn Creek. And they changed another one of our schools to I think it was Pooperhorn School, and it was grades 69 through 420. If you didn't get the second part of that joke, talk to me later. I'll happily explain that to you. All right, but it can give you access to your systems. It also could mean you don't get paid, right? Especially if your school doesn't have a disaster recovery plan whatsoever. And then it can close schools. We had several districts across the country who had to close school because of this happened. So Jan asked a great question. How many of you have been hit with an incident? It's not if you're going to be hit with an incident, it's when. And when we think about that, the scariest thing that I think about is that they can already be in your system and they are waiting for high impact, right? They are waiting until there is a time when it is the worst possible time to hit you, and they will get exactly what they wanted. So when we think about this, you have to have some strategies. I'm not going to go into all the strategies today. It would take us much longer. 40 minutes is not going to be anywhere near what we would need to talk about. But we need to think about what systems we have in place, what processes we have in place, and the people you have. Because, folks, here's the thing. Your people are the biggest risk of all. And I don't say that to discredit anybody, but we can't control who clicks on what, how, and when. So how do you keep your district well? And I'm going to run through these very quickly. At any point in time during this week, if you want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk to you about any of this. But security updates. How many of you are still running? Actually, don't raise your hand on this. I don't want to know. How many of you haven't updated your phone in at least 6 months? And I mean the software, not the new phone. All right? So always run your security updates because they fix bugs. And bugs are what people use to exploit to get in. All right? Do you have a way to continuously look at your vulnerability? So we have a server scanner. It tells me where we have things that are going to be a problem. Scariest thing ever this year is when we ran it for the first time, we had 100 servers that had vulnerabilities. 100 servers with vulnerabilities. And so we've been working through that. As we were sitting here today, I got a message saying that I wasn't checking my messages, but I did get a message saying that we are now up to 51 servers completely patched, right? which is great, but I still have 49 other servers that are an issue. Training and education, our friends at schools in every realm, not just our teachers, not just our central office staff, not just our tech people, all need training and education on how to keep themselves safe and how to keep you safe. Multi-factor authentication, how many of you have had to go that way in the last little bit? All right, so in case you didn't know, if you're not one of the hands raised, if you have cyber insurance, it's now a requirement. We are in the process of rolling that out in our district. It can be very easy and painless, but it also can be not for people who don't want to click an extra button. So that's also true. Limit your admin rights, the ability to go in and make changes to your own computers. That's one we're guilty of, and we are working to fix that regularly. That means you can't install things on your own machine, just to make sure everybody understood that part. Backups. If something happens, you want to be able to back up your information. So thinking about how you back up that information and how you restore it is a big part. Password management, right? How many of you love complexity of passwords, like the 9 letters, your firstborn's name, this, that, all the things you put in there? What we found is actually complexity isn't necessarily the best way to secure passwords. It's longer passwords and in passphrases. So we actually, in the next month, we're dropping our complexities and going to a 12-character password. But you come up with something like, Power Trip is the greatest. They're harder to crack, strangely enough, when you go through that process. There are also bad password checkers or passwords that may be used multiple times. It can check to see if you have that. And then, of course, looking at least privilege. And least privilege means just because you could give somebody the access doesn't mean they should have it. When we think about that, that was one of the hardest part for our academic friends who were running different applications, and they wanted to have super admin rights to their application. And we said, oh, no, you can't have that. Because when we look through those processes, we manage all the servers, all the applications, and we give them a particular viewpoint, but not everybody needs to have admin access. Because it only takes one person to leave it logged in to then, of course, cause all kinds of grief. So again, good cyber wellness reduces the likelihood and the impact, right? The likelihood and the impact. So when I go back again, I want you to talk for a minute at your table, or maybe I'll give you 2 minutes this time. I'm not even sure how good I'm doing on time. Kim has disappeared, so there you go. All right. But when we think about this, what are some of the things you're doing in your district to keep your district cyber safe? All right? Go for it. All right, let's come back. All right, lots of great conversations that I heard. Some of the things that I heard were really about the idea of cyber insurance, right? And what does that look like? And one of the things that if you were talking to your technology person in your district right now, what they will tell you is it is becoming almost impossible right now to get cyber insurance. And there is a question of whether or not it's even valid anymore. I'm not going down that path because I'll be honest with you, I'm probably overinsured personally because I like to plan like 2 or 3 steps out. So I'm okay with the cyber insurance. But the problem is as the large a district as I am and the resources I have, a lot of our smaller districts don't have those resources. And right now, my team is trying to figure out how we meet all the requests for insurance companies to be able to do that. So it's really stressful. One of the things you also need to think about and you need to know in your state is whether or not you're allowed to pay a ransom for your data. The state of North Carolina this past year just made it illegal for a school district to pay a ransom. So I can't pay a ransom to get my data back anyway, right? Not that I would. I happen to have law enforcement in my family, and the whole we don't deal with terrorists thing is still in my brain, right? So when we think about those types of things, you have that. One piece, and I'm going to have you talk just briefly about this at your table. that I didn't put on here, and I debated on whether or not to put it on there, and I'm just going to talk about it off the cuff. How many of you have an approval for different software and applications in your district? All right, now I love the people who said, oh Lord, you must be curriculum people. Because curriculum people don't like the approval processes for software. Yep, right? So when we think about this, everything that your teachers use needs to be vetted within your school district. I can also talk about that for hours. I will not. But what I will tell you is this. Some disturbing data just came out from an organization called K-12-6, and that's k126.org for anybody who is nerdy, and it's the number 6, not and the letter 6, the words. K12six.org, thank you. Brain is not working at this point. But what it said was from the years 2016 to 2021, of all the cyber incidents in K-12, the biggest place where they could get it, the initiator of the cyber leak or data breach, 55% of all breaches came from one of your, sorry friends, your vendors. So if you're not vetting and you don't have security agreements in place and something happens, you have to know who your vendors are, what access to data they have, all the processes in place, which is what vetting does for us. I tell people all the time, as a former teacher, I have no intentions of trying to block teachers from using things, but I do have all intentions of blocking teachers from using things that are unsafe. If we were talking about porn, this wouldn't be a discussion. But it's data, and people don't think it's real, but it is very real. Ask Los Angeles School District, New York City School District, and Chicago, who all had a vendor just have a major breach, and all the work they're having to do with that. So have a vetting process. If you need a process, I will happily give you ours. We've done a great job. My team has done a great job of that. But there are lots of different ways to begin that work, especially during COVID when every vendor, again, I am so sorry, my partners, I love you so much. But don't offer me anything free. Don't offer my teachers anything free. I will say no every time when we think about those types of things. So when we work through those processes, do that. All right, so then I want you to quickly talk about your cyber self, right? So think about you personally. Take your school district out of it. How are you keeping you well? Again, running those updates, those security updates on your phone, on your computer, anything that's electronic has a security update, run them. I have a friend, who Jan knows as well, who I literally had to take her phone away from her, and I went through and updated her phone like 100 bazillion times. Because the problem is once you have one update not done, there are also 5 more coming, and it causes a greater problem. So you've got to do that. Training and education, understand yourself, what risks you have in your home, right? Think about all those processes. Multi-factor authentication, whether or not your districts are doing or not, your banks are, Google is, Amazon is, other products are now, always turn on your multi-factor authentication. It keeps you safe, or at least reduces the impact and the likelihood that you'll have an issue. Password management, friends, if you have a password that you use for absolutely everything, it's not a good idea. Also, if you use password as a password, also not a good idea. Also, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not a good idea. So be thinking about that. And never share your passwords, friends. Never share your passwords. The only passwords I have are my child's, because, I'm mom, and that's just going to happen. My mother-in-law's, because I have to fix everything she has, and nobody else can remember the passwords, so I have those. But you should always keep your passwords private to you. Always do that. And then the last, back up your stuff. Now, if you're using cloud, Google Drive, Office 365, things like that, they're backing them up for you. iCloud, Android, all of those things can set to back up to your cloud. Do that. Otherwise, you're going to be one of those people. If you are still carrying around a flash drive in your pocketbook, Talk to me later. Do not have a flash drive. Hey, I'm from the South. That's what we call it. We don't carry purses. Yeah. All right. So be thinking about how to do that. Mwah. Love you, friend. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Jan, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the awesome things that ClassLink does to help you as well. Sure.
For the password management, I know people who use like an app that houses all their passwords. That always worries me because it's all passwords in one space. What's your thought on that?
So I do. If you're using a good one and you have a secure password, if you're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that, that's probably a problem. But there are some good ones out there, and if you are interested in that, using your notes section in your phone is not a good way to do that. Also, having the sticky note on something, also not a good idea.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how many times I've walked into a superintendent's office and they lift up their laptop and all their things are written on a sheet of paper underneath their laptop, or sticky notes, or all the different things that I've seen for sure. So ClassLink has evolved. We started out as a single sign-on. I'm sure you've heard of that, where you just log in with your one login and you get into everything. Well, now we have another factor that we have to do, and some of you may have teacher unions that are pushing back on using their phones for multi-factor authentication, because you can't make me do that unless you pay for my phone and all of that. So we have solved that at ClassLink for you as well. So if you're looking at how to implement multi-factor with not just your admins, but your staff, and we can even do it for your students, and start that practice even with the young ones, that's part of the ClassLink suite. So if you're buying that, just multi-factor from something else, I can promise you're paying as much for just that as you can for everything ClassLink can do for you. So we'd love to talk to you about that. The main thing is, Colleen and I were looking at the list of who's here and who's our customers, and over half of you already use us, so thank you for that. But there are a lot of other people in this space, and one of the things that's really important to our CEO, and of course then to us, is your data. And we have, have a model that I don't think any of our competitors really model after us, but we give you your own server with your own data in it, and we don't mix it with anybody else, and we don't get in it. So security, she is so right. There are so many vendors that are doing so many unsafe things. So listening to your CTOs about that vetting process, I know it means you might not get that one thing that you really, really want, but until it's safe, it's just not worth it. That big breach that she's talking about in those big cities, those child's social security numbers were part of that breach. And a lot of your data has that information in it, and so you just really do have to be more careful than you probably want to be. But she's right. The two people that are going to get on the news is you and the CTO, so you want to be as careful as you can. So I'm just going to close here with just Ann kind of set me up for this, but I just want to stop and not talk about cyber wellness, but just talk about this event and what it's meant to me, and I hope what many of you are learning from it if you're here for the first time, but I know why you are coming back if you're coming back. And I'm going to use an analogy. Marlo's already heard this, but it's summertime, and in Texas, and I know many parts of the world, we're starting to see fireflies out in the night. And I'm got a little mesmerized by those in East Tennessee because they have asynchronous fireflies there where they all light up at the same time, and I won't go into all of that, but those are really beetles. I don't know if you knew that. They're not flies at all. Didn't know that either. But what happens when, in my childhood, when we would see those fireflies is we'd go beg our mom for a mason jar and put that firefly in that mason jar and try to catch them, right? And the more you got, the brighter that mason jar became, and it was who could have the most light in their jar before we killed them all, from suffocation, right? But what I see in each one of these faces that I get to look in here is all of you are a firefly in your world and in your district, and to your students and to your staff, and you are lighting up your district. But what happens is when we get all of you in one room, this jar here is bright, very, very bright. And I hope that you take away, thank you, Aunt, I hope you take away the brightness that you are creating by being this community. And I am so thankful for Marilyn and all of the team, the leadership team that has made this kind of event happen. ClassLink is doing this for female CTOs as well, because just like you are a rarity in the superintendent world, so are females in the CTO world. So we treasure that as a former female technology director. I know it's a hard road for females there too. So I think when we come together, we make a pretty bright mason jar. So thank you, and we look forward to talking to you during the speed dating.